within just a few days of us taping this episode, we have been notified that Malcolm-Jamal Warner has passed away.
Tonight here with the breaking news, the stunning death of actor Malcolm-Jamal Warner.
I think something that surprised all of us when we saw it pop up, a stunning death of actor Malcolm-Jamal Warner.
Our family watched the Cosby Show every Thursday night. The depiction of that family was atypical in that you had a successful husband and wife team.
NBC, Thursday night,
NBC.
8 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
My entire family, like many other families across the nation, were in front of our television. Many things Malcolm-Jamal Warner went on to do with his life, with his career. After the fact, this really felt like something that hit so very close to home. Welcome to With Love, The Chambers,
where life, laughter, and lasting lessons meet.
We're The Chambers, a husband and wife navigating faith, family, and everything in between.
Here we share real stories, heartfelt conversations, and a whole lot of love. Because life isn't perfect, but God's grace sure is.
So pull up a seat, grab a cup of coffee, or go ahead and sip that tea, and join us for honest talks, laughs, and the wisdom we're learning along the way. This is With Love, The Chambers. Welcome to another episode of With Love, The Chambers. We are so excited to have you join us this With Love Wednesday. I am Jamila Chambers.
And I am Rufus Chambers.
And we are so thrilled to have you join our discussion today. As always, we thank you so much for listening, for viewing, for your support, for your likes, for your shares. We just had some data given to us about our show and just have done a bit of analysis about where we have been landing with audiences over the last couple of weeks, and we are just floored.
Absolutely.
We are floored.
Absolutely. So thank you all for all of you who have tuned in and listened, and you know, the analysis that was done was very cumulative. It felt like a root canal, but you know, with this information, we do intend to make some modifications, make some changes, be more strategic and intentional in bringing you content that adds value to you. And we really want to continue to curate discussions that just add value to your everyday life. And one thing I've been thinking about, Jamila, about these conversations that we're having is that I look at this as the public square.
Yes.
You know, we're people of faith, we're people that sincerely follow Christ, but we realize that these conversations are in the public square, not just in the quote unquote church public square, but in the broader public square. And I think these have been going well. So I just look forward to continuing to do what we do.
Many more.
Absolutely.
And today, family, I have to give you some fair warning that we're having a family discussion today. And we're having a family conversation today. Within just a few days of us taping this episode, we have been notified collectively, especially as a Black Gen X community, that Malcolm-Jamal Warner has passed away at the age of 54. And collectively, we just thought it was important to have this conversation as a family, because you just couldn't be Gen X, African American, have been a kid or a child, a young adult, a teenager, a full-grown adult. You couldn't have lived through the 80s.
That's true.
In our community especially, without feeling this very deep connection in a way that I don't think we were able to articulate until we experienced, and notice I said we experienced this most this week, because that's what it has felt like collectively.
Absolutely.
Until this week in particular. And that connection with the Cosby Show, that connection with the messaging and the representation and the access and the exposure that it gave many, especially, and I won't even just say the Black community, just in general, families.
For sure.
But especially African American families, and in particular why this loss of someone that you and I did not know personally.
Yeah, felt like we
but
did.
It felt like we did. And that is not even hyperbole. Like it felt like we did. It felt like the loss of a cousin or a family member or a loved one, and it felt that way. And we wanted to talk about that impact and about why there was just such a connection that, quite frankly, will live much beyond Malcolm-Jamal Warner's life. That impact lives on in each one of us in a very, very powerful way. So before we talk about that, I want to talk and have you just explain, what did the Cosby Show, what did Malcolm-Jamal Warner's character of Theo mean to you, represent to you, and just evoke in you from your childhood experience?
I mean, priceless memories. You know, I think as a family, you know, our family watched the Cosby Show every Thursday night, you know, as a unit, and I felt like that family represented a lot for us, because I feel like the depiction of that family was atypical in that you had a successful husband and wife team that were down to earth, a doctor father and a lawyer wife, and then they had all these kids. They had 5 children, you know, living in one of the boroughs in New York. And I don't think America had seen that image in front of them before.
Sure.
You know, and I remember sometimes people would look at it like, well, is this realistic, a doctor and a lawyer? And for some people's life, yes, you did have 2 successful parents in the home that had corporate careers and that were raising their children with intentionality.
Sure.
And it was a very powerful image. And mind you, we know, unfortunately, with Bill Cosby, you know, this last season of his life has been riddled with scandal and, you know, jail time and, you know, accusations, lawsuits, et cetera. But in that time, he was really free from that. So this image was so searing in my conscience. And I think the Cosby Show gave a lot of African-American families, and I'll speak from my perspective being an African-American, it gave a lot of African-American families and young people something to aspire to, because, and it was on for so long and they dealt with so many life lessons for children. So you would see the perspective of both the child and the parent talking through real life issues, curfews, allowances, chores, sports, dating, college. I mean, you name it, they really ran through the gamut of a lot of issues. And I think Theo, for me, you know, Malcolm-Jamal Warner is a few years older than me, so he was living through a lot of things that I desired to live through, you know, so he was, again, this image. And, you know, just from, you know, the swag factor, haircuts, clothes, girls, music, high school, sports. I mean, you name it. He was like a cultural icon. His character was a cultural icon, having older sisters and you having a crush on your sister's friends. I mean, you name it. I mean, it was such a personification, you know, for me. And it was just something that I think a lot of us aspire to be. Even watching the show, he desired to be a good brother and a good son. You know, he wasn't perfect. He made mistakes. You know, I remember a bullying episode where, you know, and he got called out and he had to make amends for that. But there were so many episodes where so many life lessons. And as I kind of grew into a young man, I remember even being in college, having conversations with young men at the time who didn't grow up with a father. And they would share how that television show helped them see an image of what they didn't have in their home and what they desired to be as a future father. So, you know, and I think about Malcolm-Jamal Warner's his character, we saw, just like Keisha and I Pulliam, we saw them grow up in front of our eyes.
Grew up with them, yes.
And I think maybe when the show started, maybe he was 12 or something, and when the show ended, he had graduated from college, from undergrad, at NYU. So you saw him mature, and even now as being a parent, being as a parent, we think about, when they were parenting him in college, even some of those life lessons, the roommates, the rent, and, tearing up something at the apartment. I mean, all of that, right? So it was such a rich show with so many life lessons. And I think as you zoom out, even outside of the African-American community, it also provided a picture of the normalization of functioning Black households. And I think for some outside of the Black community, they had never experienced that or seen that. So that normalization was very important as well. You know what I mean? To break down some of those cultural misnomers and some of those prejudices, to see, wow, these folks are sitting around the table eating a meal.
Absolutely.
And, they're doing a college tour. And wow, they went to an HBCU, and, the daughter is in college. And, so it was such a powerful, cultural, iconic picture and media for this nation. And, his role was very, very powerful. What about for you? I know that, your family partook in the Cosby Show when you were young as well.
Wow. For me, NBC, Thursday night.
NBC.
8 o'clock. My entire family, like many other families across the nation, were in front of our television. If you were real fancy in your house, you had a VCR. If you were like most people, you did not have a VCR. Let me translate. And for those that are not familiar with a VCR, it's a, what does it stand for? Video recording device? Oh, I don't even know what VCR stands for.
Yeah,
I have to look it up. Anyway, for those of y'all that need to Google,
I don't know.
That needs to Google what VCR stands for. I don't even know what it stands for.
VCR and a VHS cassette tape.
And yes. Anyway, don't quote us. But that was an old device back in the ancient days that you would record television shows on. So either you had to watch it live or you had a VCR at home. And even if you had a VCR at home, you probably only had one or two of those VHS tapes that we were talking about. But your mama was going to tape her soap operas over the top of them. And don't you tape over them before she watched them. So this was must-see television.
It was.
And I remember not only it being must-see television on Thursday nights, but the next day at school, that was the talk.
Conversation on the yard.
That was the talk at nutrition. That was the talk at lunchtime. We immediately recounted what we were laughing at. We immediately recounted what everyone had on. And if you missed it, you just felt like you were out of the loop of the conversation for the rest of the week, because it was that impactful culturally, really across the nation and now across the world. And Malcolm-Jamal Warner's character, and there were so many iconic moments, but Malcolm-Jamal Warner's character just really, changed our lexicon in so many different ways. You cannot hear that Ray Charles night and day without thinking about Malcolm-Jamal Warner coming down the stairs and lip singing at the grandparents' anniversary celebration. You cannot see that infamous Gordon Gartrell shirt that has now become a Halloween costume. It was so iconic, without thinking about that episode of Theo interacting with Denise and being upset with her about, not making his $30-some-odd Gordon Gartrell shirt correctly. And so to have given us so many moments and so many moments of laughter, whether he was engaging with his siblings or with his best friend Cockroach, played by Carl Payne, or talking through not only some of his maturation challenges, but his character had dyslexia on the show, and then talking about, which was very atypical to talk about folks that might have different learning abilities and how you navigate through that in an educational context, and even how the family for many, many years just thought he wasn't focused and wasn't paying attention and that sort of thing. And this is the doctor and the lawyer that had some difficulty recognizing that their child had some challenges with the way that they learned and the way that they processed information. And then once the parents became educated, it allowed him to then thrive in college and graduate and feel more confident as a student and all of those things. And that gave us the language through that character to not only have the moments of laughter and in maturation. And you remember when his character got the earring pierced. And, when his character said, and this was probably season 1, I just want to be regular people. You and mom and dad are a doctor and a lawyer. And it was the budgeting exercise. And I just want to be regular people. Spend $100 on clothes. No, make that 2 because I want to look good, you know. So just all of those things, I even smile now just reflecting on those memories. And then you and I got to see those memories transcend into our children who have now watched that series several times, front to back several times on the streaming services. And what was interesting about those messages is to understand how timeless they were. Because I understood why those messages and those characters resonated with us in real time, but to watch the series again now several times through their eyes and to see it resonate with them so powerfully all these years later was just amazing. And then one of the most astounding things to tell the listeners, one of the most astounding things was to watch our children watch the replay episodes, the episodes that would show the flashbacks of the characters kind of interacting and reminiscing about what happened several seasons before. And I remember our daughter saying, why would they put all these episodes together? Like, what's the point of these flashback episodes? And I was like, again, we're telling on ourselves. Flashback episodes meant that this was going to show about 3 years, 4 years after the original episode. They didn't watch it. We didn't watch the series over 4 days like our children have and get to see all the episodes in a binge format. It was years before you went from seeing a particular episode to those flashback episodes. And we laughed anew, and we didn't have them recorded or to go back and reference. I mean, they really were just seared, you know, in our memories until we had the opportunity to see them in a flashback form. And so for all of those reasons and the many things Malcolm-Jamal Warner went on to do with his life, with his career, after the fact, this really, really felt like something that hit so very, very close to home. And so I want to ask you, as we talk about just our memories of the show and our memories of Malcolm-Jamal Warner's character in particular playing Theo Huxtable, for you, as you process your response to hearing the news of his passing over this past week, why was that so impactful to you?
His passing, or just his contribution to
just his passing? Like, why did that hit you differently than maybe another celebrity or someone else?
Because I felt like his character and the characters of some of the other people, you know, in the cast, I felt like it was such an instrumental part of my upbringing that it just scratched a deeper surface, you know, the show and specifically his character. I even remember, you know, before my father passed away in 1994, I remember one summer watching the videotapes of the Cosby Show with him. That became like our thing one summer. And, you know, we weren't big talkers, you know, he was, you know, kind of unable to articulate his thoughts a lot at the time, but we could just sit there and enjoy that moment and watch it together and enjoy it. So, you know, when I think about the show, not only what it meant to me, but what it meant to the family, you know, it was just deeper than entertainment per se, you know, and up to that point, yeah, we had, you know, Good Times, which was entertaining, and you know, that had some and cultural, impactful. You know, the Jeffersons, and you know, funny show, but this just hit home differently, and I feel like it just became a part of my child rearing, you know, of my growing up, you know, my development, you know, and for some reason and then I think another thing, when they added a different world to the Cosby family, then that became an extension of my growing up and my development, because now it's like, okay, we've addressed family, and then we have the college experience. And so it just extended, you know, this kind of love affair with this family, these characters, you know what I mean? And then, so then when I add in the different world, I feel like that it began to, and again, I don't, and you know, let me just pause for some of the super deep people, right? You know, we're not here to idolize. I have to say that now. Yeah. We're not here to idolize Malcolm-Jamal Warner, Bill Cosby, or the Cosby Show, or a different world, but we're just talking about the impact that it made, because again, I felt like that picture of that collegiate experience, it was very instrumental in my college application process. Sure. And, you know, how I kind of went through my collegiate years, you know, even us connecting, right? You know,
and because HBCU administrators will say the effect that show had
the enrollment,
on
you know,
HBCU
the applications, you know, it really, and
sure.
we're seeing that even now, right?
Yes.
And I know that they're considering a reboot. I think they're filming a reboot, you know, of a different world.
I might have heard that. Oh, that would be good.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be on Kadim's Child with Jasmine Guy or something. I think they have started filming.
I love it. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, but yeah, it just went a lot deeper. And the thing I love about, you know, Malcolm-Jamal Warner, you know, after the show, he went on to do a lot of different things, but I felt like, and this is something else I appreciate about him, I felt like he carried that legacy of that show with honor and with a certain presence throughout his life, at least again from us, the outside looking, you know, because you saw him, and even you think about his life, and we know that, you know, now that he's passed, we're learning about, you know, his mom, his dad, but even him becoming this Renaissance man, you know, where yes, I'm a jazz musician, I'm a poet, you know, I'm an actor. It's almost like his life somewhat personified what was portrayed in the show, you know, but you know, reading the tributes from different people that knew him, it just spoke that this man, you know, yes, he was an actor, yes, he was a performer, but he carried to me that legacy with him, you know, after the life of the show.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And even seeing how important being a father was to him, at least what we've read.
Yes.
And even him keeping his wife and his daughter identities private because he wanted to protect them. But, you know, I don't know if you remember the pandemic, you know, they would have pictures, he's playing with his daughter and, you know, they're playing not Connect Four, but
she was quite small then.
Yeah, but you know, they were, I forgot the name of the game where you kind of get on the ground and put your left foot here and
Twister.
Playing Twister. And I mean, but you just saw that, yeah, he had a child late in life, but it seems like it was very, very important for him. Fatherhood was very, very important for him. And hearing a man and seeing a man say that from their platform, it carries weight. You know, it carries weight because we know that it encourages some other men or young men to hey, we're raising people here. This is not play. This isn't play. This is serious. This is intentional. So just have a lot. But the funny part is, and when I pitch it to you, because he didn't become Denzel Washington in his career, right? He didn't become Will Smith.
Sure.
He had the Cosby Show, and then he did some things along the way.
Malcolm and Eddie, great show, great run.
Yeah, but this loss, it felt like it really carried a lot of weight. Like the tributes they just came out of nowhere. What do you think that was about? What do you think that was about? Because again, I felt like the outpouring that I saw, it exceeded some people that are more popular per se. What do you think that was about?
I think it was all about congruence between his private life and his public life.
That's good.
And what everyone had to say, top to bottom, was just how good, how sincere he was. That he valued his friendships, that he invested in those relationships, and it wasn't for the gram, for the outside. So, and even many of the tributes that have come in, they've come from people that you might not have expected had a connection with him, which is why it might have seemed so startling.
Absolutely.
Because in this day and age, and you also have to remember what kind of celebrity he was. He was a celebrity in the 80s. And in the 80s, celebrities had private lives.
That's true.
Things weren't documented and frontline and day by day and that sort of thing. Whereas now, we're so used to literally, what do they call it, Clayton, Meg the Stallion, and your boy Clay Dayton, and we are on everything with them in real time. We know when they're working out, we know when they're playing golf, and so he also too was raised in an era where my friendships, my relationships, I didn't know he directed the first Any Heartbreak video.
And he was in the video.
I remember being in the video, but I didn't know he directed it because again, that was out of relationship. That was out of doing the work. That was out of, really, really wanting to continue to grow as an artist. It was not for our adoration, celebration, and all those things. So that really speaks again, and he speaks so highly of his parents and the grounding that his parents instilled in him. And I think that was just a big deal. What I was so impacted by just hearing this, and really one of the main reasons I wanted to have this conversation with you, is that this conversation about gone too soon. And this conversation about a 54-year-old just a month or two ago having a conversation about legacy. And then really just truly in the twinkling of an eye, transitioning out of time into eternity. And it is a very taboo conversation to have in many cases, and people don't want to have this conversation, but truly, these types of things happen every day with folks in there much younger than 54, passing on and transitioning, and how do we live our life in such a way that no matter how much time we have between our start date and our end date, how do we live our lives in such a way and have the stewardship over our relationships in such a way that folks will speak of us in a way that gives honor to God, honor to our lives well spent, honor to the relationships that we cherish and the friendships that we cherish. And that was so impactful to me in so many ways, because many folks, and I have been very, very happy to say, last year I turned 50, and even I had language at one point, I'm halfway. I turned 50, it's halftime now. When the truth is, halftime is a time that's unknown to us.
Yeah.
And we pray that many of us could be like, our grandparents that lived to be 102 and, 103 and 50 is quote unquote halfway.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is that's just not the case for most people. So with the time that we do have, it just was like a glass of cold water over the top of my head. Jamila, you better make sure that you are making impact with your moments.
That's good.
Because I intend, by the grace of God, to be here a very, very long time till I got all the gray hair and long in the tooth, as my dad would say, and all of those things. But we don't get to dictate that, and we don't get to predict that.
That's true.
So how do we have good stewardship, over our time, over our days, and really, really, really live this thing full out? Because those moments are just moments. He was on vacation, had plans, had a calendar, had a schedule, right? All the things. And so that conversation about, or really that thought about stewardship and stewardship of our days and of our times was something that hit me really, really hard, because we just casually have a way of even walking and moving through our lives like we just got all the time in the world.
That's true.
And it's not to be morbid or not to be a downer or not to not be a person of faith, but it just had another level of urgency, like, whatever you want to do, girl, you better do it.
Well,
whatever you want to do, you better do it, because these are the moments. These are the moments. These are the moments.
Yes.
I want to have you kind of pivot a bit, because I was also reminded of a challenge that some friends of ours, the Joneses out of Arizona, gave us in the pandemic. And we did not want to have a conversation about our trust. We did not want to have a conversation about preparing to not be here. That was a conversation we put off for a long period of time, and the Joneses challenged us 2020, 2021, somewhere around in there, and said, yo,
handle your business.
You all better handle your business. You all better handle your business. And so I want you to kind of pivot into talking about what that process was like for you. And we're talking 5 years ago, you and I were in our early and mid 40s at that time, and got a challenge again from a couple that, we trust and we appreciated the push, but they challenged us and said, in our early and mid 40s, you better get it together. And we didn't want to talk about it then. We didn't want to have that conversation. We did not.
I think you didn't want to have.
Okay. Let me speak for myself.
I was perfectly fine.
I'll let you speak on that, and then I'll jump into the why I did not. From there, but
for sure.
But talk about that challenge about having those conversations, tough conversations, maybe earlier than you desire to.
And hats off to Team Jones, who did challenge us as mentors to really press into that conversation.
They did.
And then shout out to our attorney, Jeff Toda, that Jeff and I went to elementary and high school together, and lo and behold, he's a trust attorney. So he patiently guided us through that process. And I think, it was a refreshing experience for me, I think, for a couple of reasons. Number one, my father passed away when he was 49 years old. So, and, watch living with my mother, and living with my mother through his sickness and then his transition, and then the life that she has lived since his passing. And seeing her, by the grace of God, be relatively comfortable financially since his untimely passing, it's always left a mark, in my mind. So I think I was approaching that conversation about getting our trust in order from that perspective. And it's almost like, I don't want to say a sigh of relief, but it is, as being a husband, provider, to say, okay, we have the trust, we have thought through and talked through a plan that, my wife and or my children, there's some plan in place.
Yes.
So I think that's how I approached it. And then, thinking about, again, and it's painful to think about, Malcolm-Jamal Warner's wife and his daughter,
yes,
now having to, do life without him.
yes,
But in the trust planning, that's literally what you're thinking about, is that if something happens to me, okay, how can my wife be financially secure? And then how can my children continue to live their lives, but at the same time also have some type of financial recompense for me no longer being there. So that's how I thought about it. And then, the part of the process, we have to think about if we would both go at the same time, which is, oh my goodness, that would
difficult.
Be, double tragedy.
But that was
then
difficult
at the same
to talk
time,
about.
You got to think about that. Okay, who could come in and provide leadership, administratively, and provide leadership from a care, for our girls, So it was a challenging process, but I'll never forget, one of my favorite Bible teachers, Dr. Miles Monroe. I remember him specifically saying in his head, or he was teaching, and he would say some stuff, but he said, "I've already buried my wife." And he said, I was like, "What?" But he was saying, he has played that mental and emotional scenario out in his head. So when we were going through the trust process, I thought about that, like, wow, this is part of that. You know what I mean? But I feel like it's a process that families need to do.
Yes.
And now we see, as, we continue to work hard, we continue to, work and save, and, you have assets, you have different complexities, that trust is important. That trust is important. And then I think another seed, that our attorney planted was this multi-generational legacy conversation of how you can, have assets within the trust, and then those assets within the trust can become a blessing to not only your children, but then their children. And then you can create a new common methodology of passing down a tangible blessing, to generations not yet born. So that's what it was like for me. And, I know, we got to land the plane, but why don't you share for you why you didn't want to start it? But I know you got some encouragement when Jeff Toda asked you a couple questions specifically, but why didn't you want to talk about it? And then once you got into it, what was it like?
Well, I will say why I didn't want to talk about it. Culturally, in my family, obviously, like with every family, everyone passes away eventually, but we never talked about it. That was not something that culturally, growing up in my family, that folks just had common conversation about. One thing that's different between your family and my family, so many things different, but one point of difference is that your family financially always had this multi-generational planning mindset and had this mindset, whether it was a will or whether it was a trust, that this is specifically what I want to have happen. I'm going to document what I want to have happen, and I expect my family to execute on that. So whether it was your grandfather, whether it was your father, a great aunt, it was very well documented, and that is very much the Chambers way in a lot of instances. And so in my family, that just wasn't, you just passed on and we'll figure it out, kind of after the fact. So culturally, that was it. So let me turn to the camera. Jeff Toda.
Yeah.
Shout out to Jeff Toda.
Yeah.
But I kind of was reluctant on the call and on the conversation, and Jeff Toda approached me and said, Jamila, I got one question for you. I said, Jeff, what is that? He said, well, California is a community property state. And what happens if you pass on and Rufus gets remarried and his new wife says, Winter and Willow not getting nothing?
Yeah.
Jeff told us, sir, you got my full attention. I was in the process there.
So start taking notes.
Oh, I started taking notes there.
Yeah.
I was in the process there. It was a quick minute. I said, who's going to do what?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because nobody talks about those things, but that is a reality.
And we've seen it.
We've seen it.
We've seen it.
That is a reality. Yeah. That is something that could happen. What happens if you and your spouse work really, really hard to leave a legacy for your children, and then they marry someone that ends up not being a good steward over that legacy? And those things, in fact, do happen.
They happen.
And so it was thinking through all of those, not only scenarios about what if that could be a negative, but really, really, truly deciding as a family what legacy you and I wanted to leave and what was important to us. And let me be clear, it was also a several month process. I remember it being at least 6 months, more like 9 months. It took some time because our children were minors at the time. So you mentioned earlier, like us having to have a plan for our children in the event that something unfortunate happened to both of us at the same time. But what was also telling about that at the time was that both of our children were minors. And so we had to think through, hey, if something were to happen to mommy and daddy at the same time, we don't want our children moved from their schools and moved out of their neighborhood and taken away from their acting conservatory and the things that they are familiar with at the same time of having to grieve their parents. And so what plan do we need to have in place to facilitate making sure that the parenting we wanted to have happen for them in that moment happened? And so when I got through with it, I felt that same sense of relief, and not only a sense of relief, felt like it was the most loving thing that I could do for my daughters as a mother.
Absolutely.
I felt like it was the most loving thing. Bishop Jake says it this way: you're going to be grieving anyway, but you still gonna need the lights on.
That's right. You're gonna cry for a little while.
You're gonna be crying for a little while, but you're gonna get hungry. You're gonna get hungry is how he says it. You're gonna get hungry. That belly's still gonna rumble. You still gonna need those lights on. You still gonna need to pay for school. You still gonna need to do all of these things. And it felt like the most loving thing that you and I could have done for one another, and that you and I could have done for our children. And I guarantee you that is not the conversation I wanted to have at 45, at 44, 45 years old. That was absolutely not the discussion that I wanted to have, nor was it culturally the discussion I was accustomed to having within my family. But shout out to coaching. So we talk a lot here on this platform about those that can speak into your life and those that can mentor you and those that can coach you. And we could have taken that challenge from that couple and just said, that sort of thing. But people come into your life for a reason, and they give you that coaching and that feedback and that encouragement for a reason. And it's up to you and I to take that and say, that came to us for a reason. And we need to, in fact, respond. And we need to, in fact, do that. And so not only did we take that, got an amazing trust attorney, but then even financially, the benefits we receive. You get you a good trust attorney that can talk to you about the financial benefits and the game that you can receive even now from a financial standpoint while you are yet living. That is available to folks that have their assets in trust versus have their assets in traditional banking platforms and other packages like that. So we'll let the professionals kind of guide you through that. But that is again all of those things that kind of came to us by just being coachable and being willing to have the tough conversations, even when we thought or were hoping they were premature, right? Yeah. And so when we talk about some of the difficulty of what we felt with Malcolm-Jamal Warner passing, that tension of gone too soon.
That's right.
And some of the ramifications that gone too soon can have within our families, especially when there's not that level of preparedness. It is something that we definitely kind of responded to in the moment.
Absolutely. So with that, you all, we're going to transition, out of this episode. We do, on behalf of With Love, the Chambers, Rufus and Jamila Chambers, we do want to offer our sincere condolences to the family and the friends and the colleagues of Mr. Malcolm-Jamal Warner. We are grateful for his life, for his contribution to culture, to his contribution to humanity. And, our hope and prayer is that, his family, especially his wife and his daughter, that they will grieve together, that they will mourn together, and that God will give them comfort in the months and years to come. We're going to sign off here from With Love, the Chambers. We thank you for tuning in. Please hit the share button. Please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button, because we are on a journey, and we are so grateful that you are having this conversation with us. So God bless you. We're going to sign off. Have a good one.
This episode of With Love the Chambers is brought to you by the Vision Engineering Collective, where purpose meets precision. Whether you're launching a bold initiative, scaling your organization, or navigating complex projects, their team brings over 25 years of expertise in project management, strategic planning, and vision execution across sectors like tech, healthcare, education, and nonprofit. Ready to turn your vision into reality? Visit www.thevcollective.info to learn more.
That's a wrap for today's episode of With Love, the Chambers.
We hope you laughed, learned, and felt encouraged along the way.
If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share with someone who needs a little love and wisdom today.
You can also connect with us online on all social media platforms at Rufus Chambers Online and at Jamila Chambers. We'd love to hear from you.
Until next time,
keep living, keep laughing, and keep learning with Love, the Chambers.